In this lecture, we will discuss the genres of Jewish folk literature, with a particular emphasis on Yiddish folk literature. This category includes poetry, prose, as well as jokes, riddles, proverbs, and Purimspielen. We cannot discuss all of them, so we'll concentrate on folk prose narratives. Anthropologist William Bascom divided up folk prose narratives into three categories: myth, legend, and folktale, with various criteria to define each one. Myth has commonly taken on a meaning nowadays as something that is not true, but in terms of folklore, the opposite is true. They are very much believed in, as the sacred narratives that establish the nation, people, religion, or folk. Myths take place in prehistoric time, with heroes, non-humans, or gods as characters. For Jews, our myths are found in the Bible, which traditionally we regard as our history, and was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. Legends are narratives told as true about people or events that, it is believed, really existed. Legends did not take place in prehistoric time as myths, but in historic time, perhaps 2,000 years ago, perhaps 500 years ago, perhaps 50 years ago, perhaps yesterday. We have all heard of urban legends, a body part in someone's fast food hamburger, alligators in the sewers of New York City, and so on. They often begin with the phrase, "This happened to a friend of mine," and are at first believed. Also, people in legends usually have real names. But let's compare that to the folktale, which took place when? Oh yeah, once upon a time. Or in Yiddish, amol is given. Amol is given a meise, amol is given a kenig. Who are the characters? A king, a queen, a son, a fool, a rabbi, all with no names. Do we really believe folktales happened? Well, the older audience listener does not, but perhaps the younger listener, the child, will believe in them till a certain age. The factor of belief is important. My grandmother wrote in her book of memoirs of a horrible rainstorm in her small shtetl Zvinjechka. It rained on only half the town, and the others watched in shock as they washed away. Among the victims was the wealthiest man in town, Carmelin, who would not let go of his chest of gold and valuables and perished. When I researched the work of the YIVO Ethnographic Commission in Vilna, I saw that among the questionnaires that they sent out monthly to their network of Sammlers, collectors, to advise them what to collect, there was one questionnaire on local legends, and one of the questions was, "In Galicia, do they tell the story of Carmelin in your town?" You can imagine my surprise when I realized that an event that my grandmother recorded as part of the history of her town was in fact a local legend told in many towns. But she believed it to be true, and that was what was important. It was no folktale for her. The study of the folktale became one of the foundations of the field of folklore. Who can we thank for that? The Grimm brothers. Once they published their collection in Germany in the early 19th century, people in other countries read them and said, "Wait a minute, we tell that same story here in England or here in Sweden. It's just a little different the way we tell it." And so countries all over the world began to collect these folktales and publish them. Eventually, there was enough data to compare and contrast, and this led to the development of two important resources for the study of folk literature: the tale type and the motif indices. A tale type is the basic plot of a narrative, and each tale type is assigned a number. At this point, we have over 1,000 tale types, which allow us to view not just folktales, but any narrative across cultures. This makes it easy to see if the basic plot of a Yiddish, Hebrew, or Ladino tale is told elsewhere. The motif of a story is the smallest narrative unit out of which the folktale is created. For example, in the Yiddish version of Tom Thumb, called Bebele, Little Bean, Bebele is swallowed by a cow and yells out to the person who is cutting open the cow, cut from the side, so as not to harm Bebele. The swallowing by a cow and the cutting from the side are both motifs to be compared with other versions of this Tom Thumb tale. When many variations of the same tale are collected by folklorists, they begin to wonder, well, where was the story told first? Can we figure out the history of the story, the origin of the tale? And so a research method called the historic geographic method, or Finnish method, was developed, in which you map out all the variants of the tale with their plots and differences. Ultimately, it was realized that no one could usually claim the origin of a tale using this method, but on a basic level, it can at least tell you if the folklore is old or new, and something about its development through time and space. I've used this method not just with folktales, but with songs and jokes as well. Folk songs and folktales have no dates to tell you how old they are, but if we find that a Yiddish song or tale was sung or told in the 19th century before radio and television, over a wide area, in Belarusia, Lithuania, Poland, and Ukraine, for example, it does give evidence that the song has traveled, with the singer or storyteller, for a long while and is part of the older repertoire. For example, I saw that the Yiddish folk song Papier is doch weiß, paper is white, was listed as being the composition of the Vilna folk bard Eliakim Zunzer, who used a version of it in a Purim play he wrote in the late 19th century. I said to myself, this cannot be. By the early 20th century, that song was sung over a very wide territory in Eastern Europe. Not only that, but singers from the southern areas, Romania, Galicia, southern Ukraine, sang none of the songs by this Litvak Eliakim Zunzer from the north, including his most popular hit, Die Soche, the Plow. To learn this song, Papier is doch weiß, from a rather obscure Purim play by Zunzer, just did not make any sense. Can I prove it? No. I was not there at the creation of the song, but the historic geographic method indicates, in my opinion, that the song is older than Zunzer's printed version, even though he was the first to print it. This brings us back to the oral, written traditions in Jewish folklore. Did the first person to print a Yiddish tale or joke create it? Or was the author really just a compiler, an editor of oral tales? When there are no other versions printed, we might never know. The great comparativist of Jewish folklore in the 20th century was Chaim Schwarzbaum. Among his works was an analysis of all the tales in the Yiddish collection Meiselach und Mesholem, printed in 1955. The compiler, the Yiddish poet Naftali Gross, had a regular column in the Yiddish Forward newspaper in which readers would send in stories that they remembered. After 6 years, Gross had amassed more than 500 tales and published them. Schwarzbaum's results were published in 1968 in a book called Jewish and World Folklore. Among Gross's Yiddish tales is the one about a father and son. Once upon a time, in the very old days, before Moses commanded that one should honor one's parents, it was the tradition that when one got old and could no longer work and earn his bread, the son would take him in a cart or a wheelbarrow and wheel him into the deep woods, and he would leave them there among the devouring animals and birds of prey at God's mercy. One day the father says to the son, "Take grandfather on the cart, take him deep into the woods, leave him there with the cart." And the son obeyed his father. It didn't take long, and he returned with the empty wheelbarrow. "Son, I told you to leave the cart as well. Why didn't you do as I asked?" The son looks over to the father, looks him over head to toe, and replies, "I brought the wheelbarrow home because I think I will need it rather soon again for you, father." In his analysis, Schwarzbaum brings to our attention that the tale is well known in India and the Far East, and brings the sources. He points out that a Korean version is almost identical, including the wheelbarrow. In other Jewish versions, the son buys a poor mattress for his father to match the lousy one his father bought for the grandfather. And in the motif index, the relevant motif is called "Ungrateful son is reproved by naive action of his own son." So you see, basic ideas for folk narratives travel around the world, but must be adapted for the culture. Did the Korean version of the tale open with the reference to Moses and the commandments? I doubt it. Neither was it told in Yiddish in Korea.